This is the YOB ConvoCast, one-on-one conversations with your other brother's authors, community members, supporters, and friends.
When I'm with you, I feel like I'm already home. When I'm with you, I'm right where I belong. I'm already home.
What's up, friends, and welcome back to the YOB ConvoCast, conversations with folks in our Your Other Brothers community. My name's Tom. I'm the co-founder editor of Your Other Brothers. We're navigating faith, sexuality, and masculinity, and for the last few summers, we've done these summers-long series, if I'm pluralizing everything correctly. And it's been really fun to just hunker down for 2 or 3 months and just spend some time talking to various members of our community through a certain lens. And a couple years ago, we talked about the Enneagram and sexuality, which was really illuminating, which was really fun. Last year, we talked about sexual identity, the different words that we use to describe our experience or to describe our levels of attraction for other humans, male or otherwise. And this summer, I put it out there to our community. I wanted to hear what are some suggestions for topics that we could explore, that we could look at through the lens of sexuality, faith, and masculinity. And there was one that someone suggested, and I kind of built upon it. It's a topic that I've found very exciting when I think about my own life the last few years, this search for home. And so the name of this series this summer is called At Home, because everyone's different, but I think it's fair to say we spend over half of our lives at home, which is a big chunk. That's a big chunk of our lives that we spend behind a door and under a roof and surrounded by walls and potentially surrounded by humans as well. That it feels like that's just such a ripe area to dive into. It's such a relatable thing. We all live somewhere. We all are in a different life stage. And we're all surrounding ourselves with different people in this dwelling place that we call our home. And I just thought it would be a really interesting look this summer. Being at home, what does it look like to be at home in your faith, or at home in your sexuality, at home in your sense of masculinity in this world? And that carries with it the physical place of being at home, the walls, the geography, the city that you call home. But then there is an existential part of it too, a metaphorical, a spiritual plane of what does it mean to be at home, to be comfortable in your skin, to be comfortable in your body, and to have a sense of peace and belonging where you lay your head at night. And so that's what I'm excited to dive into this summer. For the next couple of months, I'm going to be seeking out different individuals in our community who are in different life stages, who are in different dwellings. And I'm just excited to see all of the different configurations, because as I've been preparing for this series and as I've been considering who I would invite onto the show, I'm already coming up with like 7, 8, 9 different types of living situations, different types of life stages, all these different configurations in our community. You know, I've always just kept my ears open, like who's that person live with and what's their situation and where are they at in life right now? And so I'm excited to explore that and how that impacts people on a daily basis. And so I thought to kick off this series, it would be great to go to somebody that I've gotten to know really well over these last few years. He's been in our leadership for a few years now, and he came on this show probably about a year ago, it was sometime last summer, to talk about being just a plain old gay. That was his descriptor of himself. And maybe he's got a plain old living situation too, but I don't think so. I think we'll talk about it. We'll get to know him a little bit. But it's our other brother, Matt. What's up, Matt?
Hey, what's up? Good to be here.
Good to be here. I'm excited that your back-to-back summer series is. I'm excited to see what else we can peel some more layers back on you.
Cool. I hope it's something valuable. I'm also excited to hear all the different, because I know in our community, like you said, there's a lot of representation of people who live in so many different situations. So I'm looking forward to hearing it all also. Yeah.
And I expect you, Matt, to pull no punches, to be honest about both the joys of where you live today, maybe some of the challenges as well. Because I think that's something I want to get across in these interviews, is that I don't think, maybe someone will prove me wrong, I don't think there is a perfect living situation, a perfect home where everything where it's like straight out of Leave It to Beaver, or I don't know, some other just show where everything's idyllic and nothing goes wrong. People don't fight, or there's no tension at all. I expect there to be challenges with each type of person that I talk to this series. So thanks for kicking it off. I think when I was thinking about who I would want to kick it off with, like, you're somebody that I just enjoy talking to in general, but B, I think your living situation, I think, is a great one to kick off the series with and this conversation with. So I hope you're ready. I hope you're ready to roll.
Let's do it.
All right, Matt, we're going to talk about where people are presently, but I also want to learn the history of, like, types of places you've lived in the past, situations you've shared with people or otherwise, and how that's impacted where you live today and your at-homeness.
I grew up with mom and dad in a home. My parents were married for 46 years, and they lived in the same house for 46 years. And so I continue to go back and visit my childhood home. I have one brother, so there are four of us in a pretty normal sized ranch, middle class home, North Carolina. And I had to share a lot of spaces. I shared a bathroom. I shared a bedroom when I was younger. We had to share television. I didn't just have my own TV in my room. And I'm laying a foundation here, right? We had to share food. So we shared the chores. And so I grew up in this home for years of learning how to share spaces and share things. Then I went to undergraduate and lived in these really tight dormitory spaces. I look back now and think, how did I even survive or sleep? It was so loud and gross. But I shared spaces there for 3.5 years. And so I was somewhere along in there, I became very social, extroverted, always need to do things with people. I remember a day when I could never even go out to a fast food restaurant and sit down at a table by myself, because that felt so weird to be by myself. If I were going to go to another city to go shopping or something, somebody had to be with me, just very, very social. And that was my background, right? Okay. So then I moved to Northern Virginia to work at a church in my early 20s. And during that time, I moved into a house alone. Looking back, I don't know why I felt like I needed to live alone. I probably should have lived with people. I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking about. I had this 3-bedroom house alone at age 22.
Oh, wow.
And I was making like $20-something thousand a year and thought I was rich.
Yeah, you got like your own mansion.
I did. I remember telling my parents, like, I don't know what I'm going to do with all this money. Anyway, and I realized around that time that I was into dudes. What am I going to do? Surely this is not terminal. And surely maybe I can get by through this. Maybe I can fall in love with some girl.
When you said get by, my first thought was get by, B-I. Maybe I can get by.
Whoa, that's not what I was trying to say, but actually, that's really what I was thinking. Honestly.
Subliminally, yeah. Maybe I can just get by. Yeah, I can be attracted to guys, but as long as there's attraction to women too.
Well, I will be using that joke again in the future.
Please do. I'm glad it caught my ears. I'm sure it caught at least one or two listener ears too when you said that.
Maybe I can get by. And I actually thought that and tried that for years. I wanted that to be a thing, but it turned out it wasn't. So anyway, the reason I'm laying this foundation is I had every intention of having a home, creating a home of my own that really looked like the home I grew up in. A wife, kids everywhere, toys, the cartoons, me making pancakes for the kids, to look just like my home. That's what my plan was. But I ended up moving into a 3-bedroom rental house at age 22, and I lived alone for the next 15 years. So that lays a foundation for, what I had planned, but what my reality turned into. And of course, through those years was a lot of me, grieving the loss of what I, planned and adjusting to what the reality was. And I just want to say that during those years, I had to learn that there were times when I needed to go into a restaurant by myself and sit down and eat. There were times when I needed to go shopping by myself. And so what seemed awful at first, gradually, I think, just over time became commonplace. Not that I was alone in life and I didn't have people, but my singleness necessitated, is that a word? That I learn how to be with Matt. I need to learn how for Matt and I to get to know each other a little bit more and to get along and to be at peace. And so that was in my plan, but that's what happened.
So 15 years, is that what you said? You were by yourself for 15 years in a house?
So during those times, I moved, from Virginia back to North Carolina, and I lived in a basement apartment. Another time I lived in a third floor apartment. I had
Okay, so it wasn't the same place, but yeah, it was different places, but you were always by yourself. You didn't have roommates throughout that stretch.
Correct.
Interesting. Okay. I don't know that I knew that about you. Okay. And I wanted to comment before you get to the present, because you said something I found interesting, because I think this is interesting, because I think as I've been learning about personalities and family models and all diving into therapy and all this fascinating, depressing stuff, I'm like, I think we all subconsciously or consciously, like, we are either trying to get back to the home that we were raised in, like that. What if we had an idyllic childhood, if we had this idyllic family life, like we're trying to get back to that, or like we run the complete opposite direction and we just change, like whatever that was, we want nothing like that. We want to change that completely. And so I found it really interesting that you said that you wanted to be flipping pancakes and you wanted to have the wife and kids, like, because that's what you grew up with, and it was probably a really safe, healthy environment for the most part. And it just makes sense that that's what you would want then as you become an adult. Like, how do I replicate what I experienced as a child for presumably my children and a spouse and all that? And so that's something I'm eager to explore in this series too, is to see what people's upbringings and home lives were to begin with, and how many people are trying to get back to that or have tried to get back to that, or how many are running 180 degrees or at least 150 degrees in another direction to something else. So thanks for sharing a little bit just about your upbringing there.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be very interested in your conversations to hear that also.
Yeah.
To hear what people are doing, because like you said, I really did have a safe and comfortable childhood. My parents weren't perfect, but they were present, and they were in love with me, and I felt safe and valued, and so I did want to. That was my conception, or that was what I thought home was. My uncles and aunts and cousins had homes like that, and so that's what I knew of a home, and so that's what I wanted to get to. And not to say that I couldn't have done that, but we have guys in our community who have, who are a lot like me, or some tried to get by and other things like that, and they made that happen. So everybody has a different path, but I knew. Like I've said to you before, I knew that for me, that was not going to be a thing. I was going to have to make peace with the path that God laid out for me. That I was going to have to start living into the story that He was writing, So that doesn't mean I was alone for 15 years. Absolutely not. But it means no one, slept in the bedroom with me or next to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, I was attached. Like literally, there were people sometimes above me, or I was renting out a place 2 levels below me, like with a separate entrance. Blah blah. Okay.
Humans were around the corner somewhere.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, so then I live in Charlotte now, and not long after I came down here, I got this townhome, and around the same time, a good friend of mine, childhood friend of mine, was in a relationship that had been deteriorating. And when I moved down here to the same city, I got a little bit closer to it and realized just how toxic it had become. And so this was not my plan, but I said to him, like, listen, if you want, I don't want to try, I'm not trying to tell you how to live your life, but if you need to get out, I really wish that you would come and I have space, you know? So it was very difficult, but he did that and he came out, and I thought it was just going to be for a short amount of time. But it's been several years now, okay, that I've shared a home for the first time since, age 37. Okay, and then a few months after that, another friend in the city called one day crying and said that it had this dramatic fight and breakup with his boyfriend. These are all side A people. I said, I don't know what to do. And I was like, oh, okay, wow. Well, maybe you could come here for a short amount of time. And so then somebody else came in. Sometimes like, what is happening to my life? What is happening to my the peace?
It's like you opened up a gay infirmary or something. You're letting people come in,
gosh.
the wounded, the the struggling, and then welcome them.
Right. Yeah. These men who were like, it was like a halfway house, like a refuge for battered side A men.
Exactly.
Anyway, they came in and one stayed for several years, one stayed for just a little while, and then he moved out. So, and then another friend, great buddy of mine, side B friend, for a short amount of time because of transitions in all of our lives. I was going into an internship, and he was going into time where he needed to a career transition and all this sort of thing. Moved in for the better part of a year, but now I'm back to just one roommate again. But these 4 years have been very, very different from the previous 15.
Yeah, let's living with other gay people. I've gotten this question over the years because I've done it. And as this series unfolds, similarly to the previous series that we've done, like I'll chime in here and there if I feel like it's appropriate. I really want it to be about like Matt today, which I know you love, Matt. This is the Matt show today.
Yes.
Yeah. But because at some point I'll share more about my experience on a longer basis, because I've done it all too. I've lived alone. I've lived with other gay men. I've lived with straight men. I've done it all. So I've got a little hodgepodge smorgasbord of living situations to choose from and talk about as this series unfolds. But feedback I've gotten or questions I've gotten from people is like, yeah, is that healthy? Is that good to live with other gay men? But yeah, I don't know. I'm curious, just like from living alone for 15 years and processing your faith and sexuality during that time, I'm sure.
Yes.
Like, was there any not even just like going from the transition of living alone to living with somebody, like that's enough of a jump in and of itself, but to make the jump with somebody who has a different belief set than you do and someone who is gay, like was there any cause for pause or hesitation, or did you feel like that could be threatening to you in any way, compromising, or any negative connotation whatsoever? Or was it simply just like, oh, I have a friend in need, I have a place that can house them, it's only going to be temporary? Like, I don't know, just walk me through your mindset as all that was happening.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that out. As you're asking me that, I'm thinking, what was I thinking? I think it was just, somebody needs help and I can help them. And this one friend who lives with me now, we've been friends since middle school. So that we have been friends longer than either one of us has known that we were gay. We should have known. It's ridiculous that we didn't. But so it's just we have such a history that it wasn't even a thought, really, a consideration. A friend of mine in the city had a pastor say to him, okay, he met his pastor and had coffee with him and came out, told him his story, really opened up vulnerably. And then his pastor, one of the first things his pastor said in response was, so now you're telling me you live with another gay friend? And then proceeded to like advise him that he should move out and live on his own. And So this was his pastor for a very short amount of time, and he didn't stay at this church. This friend, anyway, I didn't know about this. I was so horrified when he told me this. I'm like, whoa, you mean you opened up, you told him your story, and the first thing he said was, "You don't need to be living with this guy." Uh, I just never. This is how clueless I am, Tom. I never even considered that someone would say that to me.
Mm.
Uh, I think maybe there's this mentality that if you're gay, that you are attracted to anyone with the same genitalia.
Right, right.
This and like you're just uncontrollably drawn.
Yeah, it's like we're in the wild. I've always wondered, have you ever wondered this? Like, why do animals, like, do they have
Yeah.
like certain attractions? Like, do lions pick out certain lions with like a certain shade of color of hair, or
Right.
maybe they do. I don't know. It just seems very animalistic. Like, oh, I'm a male, you're a female. I'm gonna
Yeah.
have sexual relations with you right now because that's just what we do. We're animals. And I think you're right. I think there is that kind of implication certainly with gay men in particular, that it's like, oh, you both gay, you both have the same attraction, so there must be something going on there then if you're gonna live together,
Yeah.
which isn't necessarily the case.
Oh my gosh, no. It's not the case for anybody
Yeah.
of any sexual orientation. And I understand there's a complicated issue. There's people who are so concerned about optics and being prayerful and careful, and there's wisdom there, and it's a complicated situation, right? But in my situation, it was just these are friends I love, and we need to support each other during this certain seasons of our lives, and so it just seemed natural. I will say though that my family has struggled with me sharing a home with other gay men. They have
Okay.
some of my family has struggled. I'm out to them, but they don't. It's the kind of thing where they don't ever bring it up. The less they know, the better they can cope, and that makes me sad. But it is. I can't change that. You have to love people for where they are, uh, and understand that we're all growing and changing, and all of us are going to struggle in different ways, and they struggle with this particular issue. I think they genuinely. That's a whole other subject. That's a whole other podcast, right? But so they have struggled with me living my life in this way, but I can't. I can't make choices based upon their preferences. Yeah, that's a whole. I don't want to drag you through all that. That's a whole other topic that I would love to talk about. Is people's expectations of how you should live your life. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you might feel at home, like we haven't discussed not yet the joys and challenges of your living situation internally, but then when you look externally, like you said, the optics, like there's like that's a challenge right there. Like in a perfect world, your family would have no reservations, or you'd be able to talk about your awesome roommate or the things you're doing together, hanging out together, enjoying each other's company, the friendship that you share, the bond that you have. But the reality being that that's not the case right now for those people in your life, and that can be a limitation of your life stage and your living situation. So thanks for sharing that, because I know that's probably a relatable story for people who are listening, because I know there are plenty of people listening right now who share living situations with other gay men. Some of them might be within the YOB community or the Side B world, or they might be outside of that as well. And so I'm sure that there are some people listening who have similar challenges, that maybe they have a great living situation, but they can't really talk about it with certain people, or they can't really bring it up, or maybe they can't post pictures of themselves on social media because of optics and what people might think if they are hanging out together or whatever. I don't know. Like I think there's a lot of interesting limitations there that come to perspectives, what other people think. That is definitely part of this conversation about two gay men sharing one house together, but not being romantically involved.
It is difficult for people outside of our world to you know what? Some people it's not. I have some friends who just completely get it naturally, makes complete sense to them, and they've never questioned it. And right, you're going to have that, and you're going to have people. A lot of times, Christian people who are just who don't get it, and they're confused by it and they're troubled by it. And you have to make the decision. Are you going to measure the standard of wisdom versus foolishness? Are you going to allow the people like that to set that standard for you? Or are you going to understand that you and your specific friendship relationships, that there's something there that maybe somebody can't understand, but you get it, and it's beautiful and it's life-giving, and even if people don't understand. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
what book did we just read in the book club? But it was Eve Tishmet.
Tenderness.
Yes. I felt like it's not like I've read all the books, right? But of the books I've read about our particular situation in side B, I felt like she was the most honest, as she tends to be, right? She was the most honest and detailed and descriptive about the different types of living situations that side B men and women can find themselves, and that everybody's different, and your connection looks different. And you know what I mean? Do you remember that section in the book? I thought that was just, she was so honest. A lot of people don't want to write about that. It's complicated and it's nuanced and it's different culturally and contextually. And I feel like she did a beautiful job of addressing that in that book.
Yeah. I don't know. Have you heard this before? Like when you're growing up, like, so if you're a boy, you can't live with a girl before you're married because that's sinful. And so then if you're gay, then you can't live with a boy because that's simple. So it's like, and now it's like, okay, I'm entering into my middle-aged year. I guess I'm there. I'm in my middle-aged years, for lack of a better way of saying it. You are as well.
Yeah.
So we're both middle-aged, single men. Like, what are we to do if we need to split the rent in some way? If we need to make it by in this world, like, who do we live with? If we can't live with women, if we can't live with men, it's like, and okay, if you say I'm going to only live with straight men, now all of a sudden that gets complicating because how many 45-year-old single straight men are there? I mean, they exist. I know they exist, but it's like a smaller piece of the pie than like 21-year-old straight men. And how's that going to look if a 45-year-old man lives with a 21-year-old man? So it's just like, it feels like if you're constantly focused on optics and what the ideal living situation is, if you're not married and you have to live with somebody, like, you're going to like run into some kind of roadblock that somebody's not going to like it, or somebody's going to raise their eyebrows and be like, what is that about? Like a 45-year-old with a 21-year-old, or two gay 45-year-olds, or a 45-year-old and a single woman. Like it's just like you're going to encounter raised eyebrows at some point, and it can't live your life in such a paranoid way that you're always worried about what people think. And so I just wanted to get that out of the way, because I know I'm an overthinker and I think about all that stuff, like, oh my gosh, what are people going to think if they know that I'm living with this person or these people or that way and this way? And so at some point you got to like surrender all that and be like, yeah, it's life is too hard to worry about what 20,000 people are thinking at any given time.
But that's exactly what I think, what you just said. That's my opinion for sure. And I know that there could be a lot of different opinions and a lot of different conclusions people come to. But I think that someone who is attempting to police your living situation all the time needs to get to know you and needs for this issue to have a face. And you need to, if someone's out there policing, they need to develop a relationship with a middle-aged Christian gay man and hear everything that you just said. And when there's a face to the issue, it becomes a lot more complicated and nuanced. And, than just this clear cut, well, this was the way,
Yeah. That's not how Jesus lived.
Yeah.
Although Jesus slept around with 12 dudes in the wilderness all the time, I'm sure. So that's how Jesus rolled. But anyway, what were you going to say?
The book that I loved about that was The Redeeming Sex. I keep all these book club plugs.
Yes.
Deborah Hirsch, Redeeming Sex, she addresses that.
That's right.
And it was amazing, an amazing chapter in that book that I underlined almost the whole chapter.
Matt, you're always a gold mine. This is always like a good interlude to promote book club. Like for anyone who out there who loves reading books and loves talking about books, join our Patreon, join our book club, because we meet every month and we talk about some awesome books. So yeah. I'm always glad we can go to the book club with you, Matt.
I have one more book to bring up later in the conversation.
Oh, good.
So hold on.
I can't wait. wondering what it is. Okay, we'll see. We'll see. So you mentioned your current roommate, a gay roommate, that you've known for a while, which I think is really interesting. So you've known him for many years now. Very cool. So that's got to be a joy just in and of itself to have. It's not just someone you found off of Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace or some sketchy what have you place. The fact that you have a friendship and existing relationship with this person. So I imagine that that's a joy, but I'm curious, any other joys that you can have before we get into some challenges maybe of this living situation?
Joys. So I took the liberty of alliterating all of my lists.
This is like a Southern Baptist
you're
sermon layout.
You're welcome. I'm going to have an altar call. We'll have an altar call with music at the end of this podcast. The joys, three joys and 3 challenges alliterated. You're welcome.
Oh.
Okay. Joys. One of the joys of sharing I've found in the last 4 years, now at the age of 41. Yeah, I'm proud of I hated turning 30, love turning 40. I'm all about talking about my age. I just try not to do it as much because I think maybe some people just get tired of hearing it. Finances. I think that sharing a place, for obvious reasons, this is an expensive world we live in. And in our context, it just gets more and more pricey. And so sharing a home, finances really help. You're more people paying the rent or helping to pay the mortgage or buying the toilet paper or all this stuff. Something I found really a joy that I was not expecting is sharing food. And for me, that's been a huge deal because I am not a foodie. I have a very unrefined palate, and I don't know my way around the kitchen very well at all. And inevitably, anybody who's come to live with me knows more about food and more about cooking than I do. And I have learned so much from these guys. So how I've done it is like this meal planning. I live 1 week at a time, and we'll divide up the meals. And so you get a meal for when there's been 3 people in the home. When I had 3 people, you get a meal for Thursday, and you get a meal for Tuesday, and I'll get a meal for Wednesday. It just simplified the grocery shopping so much and saved money and time and planning. And I've found that coming home after work and getting in the kitchen I found that I enjoy cooking with friends. I thought I just hated being in the kitchen at all, but I just needed somebody to show me how to do all the things. And I found that in sharing it, like, one person is prepping this and the other person is starting this, it just makes, I found that I enjoy these, and I've learned a lot about some different meals and how to eat healthier and eat more economically. And that has been, I know that sounds like a small thing, but that has been really, really helpful.
I mean, if we spend over half our lives at home, how much time do we spend eating? Eating's another big portion of our time, whether we eat alone or whether we share meals with people. Like, that's another big chunk of life. So yeah, I don't think that's a little thing at all. I think that's a big thing.
That has been a joy. And sitting down to a meal and sharing it with others and sitting down and watching an episode of Modern Family or Parks and Rec or Malcolm in the Middle or something like that, while I have dinner, and then washing the dishes. Okay. And then one last thing, finances, food, the other F is like this fraternization. Anyway, the camaraderie.
I was getting worried. What's the third F word? Okay. Fraternization. Here we go.
I did have 4 F words, but I took the last one away. I'm just kidding.
Okay. So fraternization. I like that.
Yeah. So just the having people there. A lot of times we would make dinner together, and still do, and then go for a walk, a post-dinner stroll through the neighborhood, catching up on the events of the day, waving at the neighbors, pretending to like the neighbors' dogs, and then coming back. And something I've really appreciated in the evening is you can tell my life is very routine. I find a lot of joy and comfort in the routine. And then at 9:00 every night, especially during the week, sitting down and watching an episode of some series, whereas I spent years and years watching TV mostly alone. And now sitting down living with people and enjoying some sort of series with someone, or a movie, or these YouTube people that I follow. They posted a new video, well, let's watch them. Let's see who's traveling where now. And so that's been, I honestly say that has been a joy. Whereas I learned for years how to be alone. And I'm still and I'll get into that in just a second. I'm still pretty good at that. I still enjoy that quite a bit. But I have found that some of those small joys of sharing a home to be beautiful. And I look forward to hearing the other people you talk to, some of the joys that they have had. They may give me ideas, you know what I mean? For this kind of.
Yeah. Hopefully they'll alliterate their ideas too. But if not, there's grace. There's grace for the unstructured.
More F words, hopefully, to come. Challenges.
Yes. What are the challenges of sharing this space?
I would like to say, Tom, that the challenges have been mostly, I think, that the challenges have come from all those years that I lived alone. I think that that's what happened, is when the foundation of my metaphorical house settled in singleness. And it's very hard to change now. It's been very hard to change. And I don't know what the future holds for me, if that makes sense. We'll get into that. Because of all those years of forming into an adult, I became an adult and became who I am living alone. Okay, so I have to admit there have been some challenges, and some of it preferences. First of all, is I have become a neat freak minimalist. I don't know when this happened or how much of it is because I'm so gay, but my closet is everything but organized by color coded, right? It has to be in a certain way. I get up every day and like a robot. Part of this is personality, part of preference. And I make my bed, and the pillow shams have to be in a certain spot. My weighted blanket has to be folded. So, it sounds crazy. I keep all of my spaces completely minimal. If there's,
I'm sorry I'm laughing, but I have this visual. I'm trying to remember what the context was, but we had a Zoom call probably a couple of years ago, and you made a comment on our Zoom call, like our Zoom room with the community. And I think you made a comment of something like, my life is in shambles right now. I don't know if you were probably just being dramatic, or maybe something was going on, but you used the language of my life is in shambles. And then someone else commented in the chat, like, as he says, with his perfect lighting and his bed, you're like in your bedroom, and your bed was made, all those shams and pillows properly placed. It's like, if my life in shambles could look like that, Matt, I would be in a great place right now. But I also know that can be external, a mechanism for maybe external. What's going on internally is completely different, of course. But yeah, no, I get that. I get the need for the structure and the orderliness.
I remember them coming at me on that call. Yeah. And I appreciate it.
You do remember that?
And I appreciated it. Yeah, for sure. I like to keep my external world. I think it affects my internal world. Okay. So I'm crazy. So with living people, it's been hard because it's what happens is everybody's not as crazy as I am. Okay. People like to sit things. People like to sit candles. People like to sit like little trinkets or things that they buy when they visit Pigeon Forge or something. And I'm like, what is that doing? Why is that here? I have to clean around that. Please stop. And I wonder if some of it's a reaction to I grew up with these boomer parents who sat stuff everywhere. And the kitchen counters were covered in everything. And the tables are covered in doilies and pictures and trinkets and angel figurines. And it just makes me crazy. So I think it's me. I think I didn't realize how crazy I was until people moved in. And everything bothered me. And it wasn't them, it was me. I was like, I don't know if I could do this. And I thought maybe I would get used to it, but I don't know. I also have these sensory issues. Like if someone turns on an overhead light in any room, I want to say, so I'm assuming you're getting ready to vacuum, right? Because that's the only reason the overhead light needs to be on.
Right. It's like you're about to do surgery or something that requires that light.
Like, did you drop a contact? Because otherwise the light shouldn't be on.
We have lamps, right? I'm sure you have plenty of lamps.
I just like, lamps and easy listening, Phil Collins music. I'm telling you, all those years, and I'm just this old, ornery, picky, just feeling it coming in the air tonight. That's what happened to me. And so my advice is for people to start young. when I was younger, I thought it was crazy that people got married so young or jumped in their, relationships so young. You need to wait. You don't even know who you are. And now I'm thinking, you know what? You just need to start as soon as you can, because it doesn't do you any favors in life to, if you wait longer, just get married while you're young and dumb. Just move in. If you want to share life with people, just do it when you're young, and you'll never know any different, you know? Anyway, okay. Preferences, privacy. I'm an Enneagram 3, right? So I heard Dolly Parton. I've heard Dolly Parton talk about how, like, people who know her, who go to visit her at her home, like, they never see her outside of her persona. Dolly Parton, like,
Right.
and I feel I'm kind of like that.
Dolly Parton. I remember she did an interview with like Jimmy Fallon or somebody, some late night host, and she was like, I think she said something to the effect of like, she goes to bed wearing some level of makeup because she's worried that,
Yes.
like, what if there's an earthquake and I've got to leave the building?
Yeah.
she's gonna look like Dolly Parton when she wakes up.
Yeah, she runs outside.
It's like, wow. Okay.
Everybody's out in their
Yeah,
bathrobes.
she can't look.
And she's in
not
full
look like-
push-up bra and makeup and a wig.
She's ready. She's ready for anything. Yeah.
Dolly has got to be an Enneagram 3. There's no way she's not an Enneagram 3.
I think so.
And I feel that pressure. I don't come out of the bathroom and greet anybody, even on a weekend of vacation. I go straight from my bedroom, sneak to the bathroom, wash my face, put on my moisturizer, make sure there are no stray hairs anywhere. And then I come out and face the world in true Enneagram 3 fashion. And so, but the more people you have, harder it is to,
harder to hide.
Right. So anyway, there's trust there. Anyway, preferences, privacy, personality. I think my job requires a lot of me socially, emotionally right now. I'm really on all day. And I found that it was difficult for me to come home. And my colleagues at work say the same thing. My colleagues at work say that their spouse's biggest complaint is that they go home and they're ready to just detach and shut their brain down. And their spouse, who either works from home or works in a more isolated situation, like on the computer, wants to come home and just unload and, all the things, talk about all the things. And you're sitting there just with your mouth open, staring out, drooling, like, can I do this? Can I still be on at home? Can I be compassionate? Can I be patient? Can I care? Do I have the energy to care?
Yeah.
And that's the reality for my colleagues are married. So they go home and it takes effort. They have to communicate. They have to be honest with their spouses. We've had these conversations like, hey, I just want you to know, I love you. I always do. And I care. But some days I need you to know that I don't have a lot left. And I don't want you to think it's a reflection in any way of how I feel about you. It's just like physically and psychologically, I'm depleted. The reason I say that is because I found that having roommates, I'm not married to my roommates, but I found that coming home, it's a similar way. Is I want to love them well, but sometimes it feels like I'm still at work and I'm coming home and I'm like a counselor, or I need to be an empathetic listener. And sometimes, and I want to be that, but here's what my point. The reason I'm going on, I hope I'm not being droning on and on about this. My point is that I'm in process on this. And sometimes I feel like I've become the kind of person who needs space and solitude to be able to relax and recharge so that I can be for my friends what I want to be for them. Mm. And I've wondered if I'm the kind of person who, if I can't do that, then I just kind of crash and burn, and I can't be for them what I want to be with them. And I want you to know that I'm processing with you right now. I don't know the answers to this. I'm learning. I am 41 and I am just figuring this out because I waited so late to try to work through this, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no. I mean, we're going to talk to people who live alone. We're going to talk to people who are married. We're going to get a nice little, like I said at the top, a nice mix of people in different life stages and living situations. And there's going to be so many pros and cons. Like when you were living alone, you had everything exactly the way you wanted it aesthetically. I'm sure your house was immaculate, that 3-bedroom house that you had and other places that you've had too. But the loneliness is there too, and there's
Yes.
maybe a sense of loss or a sense of disconnect. And now you've traded that for someone who has the lights on when you come home, or vice versa, and conversations that can be shared, meals that can be shared, shows that can be shared. But then along with that, maybe a little bit of a loss of privacy, or at least a diminishing of privacy, or a clash of personalities. And so there's a lot that we can keep learning, I think, certainly going into our 30s, 40s. In our remaining minutes, Matt, I wanted to like land the plane on this at home metaphor. And you can jump anywhere. You know, we've only got a few minutes left, but in the realm of faith, sexuality, masculinity, maybe all three, if you can time all three together, possibly. But I don't know, like, where are you at presently today? Like, do you feel at home? Do you feel like when you get home at night, do you feel like in those three arenas, faith, sexuality, and masculinity, that you feel like you belong? And not only you belong and you're safe, but you also that you're growing. Cause I think that's another element of being at home. It's one thing to just have a roof over your head, but it's another to have nourishing meals and nourishing love and nourishing, you know, all the things that kind of actualize your life, that make it better, that make it like a sense of growth is happening. It's not just a sense of survival. Cause there's, you know, Maslow's, I think that's his name, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like we all have basic needs for shelter and food and water and, you know, all of that stuff. But beyond that, like a sense of purpose and a sense of belonging, a sense of love, and to get beyond just the bare bones. Like, how do you feel in those three arenas with where you are now in your life?
So yeah, when you say that, when you talk about feeling at home, the only way I know how to think about it is that word that you said, belong. Do I feel like I belong in my faith? Do I feel like I belong in my sexuality? Do I feel like I belong in masculinity? And those are, yeah. I remember the first time I read those words together 5 years ago. I'm sorry, 5.5 years ago, when I saw a Facebook post advertising YOB, and I remember thinking, what is this? You know, what is this about? I need to learn more. And I thought about that so much in the past 5 years. And I think I've really, thank God, and thank God for the work he's done and the people he's put in my life to help me get to the place where I honestly can say, I really do. It's an ongoing process, but I really do feel at home. I really do feel like I belong in all those areas. I have not always, 100%. I remember days when I did not feel a sense of belonging in those three areas. But God has been so good to provide. I was thinking the other day about my faith. I went through a faith crisis in my mid-20s. I was working at a church, and I remember teaching teenagers and thinking, while I was teaching, I was thinking to myself, this sounds crazy. Do I really believe this? While I was saying it. And that was alarming to me, as it should be. Yeah, and I thought to myself, I've got to, what is this? Looking back, I should have talked to somebody, but true to form and my personality, I don't like to be in process with people. I like to tell people about how I've gone through a process. I don't like to be in it with people, and that's a struggle for me. But God sent me some great people and some great books, and now I still have these doubts. Christianity is wild. You know, Isaiah said, "Who is going to believe this report?" In chapter 53, who's going to believe this story? And I think the same thing. This is crazy. Our faith and what we believe, it's wild. Who is going to believe it? And it's just a miracle of God if we had the faith to trust God, to trust a God that you've never seen or touched, or and that he loves you and has moved towards you through his son Jesus, and has offered you forgiveness, and has offered you pardon and peace and his promises and his presence and more alliteration. You're welcome. We'll charge you for that. But like, it's just a miracle. And I was thinking this past week, honestly, that though as strange as it feels, as strange as Christianity is, it's my life and it's my absolute world. It's the way I understand the world, my faith. And the only thing stranger for me than being a Christian would be to not be a Christian. I would not know. I would not even, I wouldn't have a grasp of what even the world is about, or who I am, or what is my purpose, what is my hope, and all the things, all the ways that the water of life and the bread of life comes to satisfy the hungers and thirsts of our souls. You know what I mean? So I'm thankful for the path that's led me to a place where I really do feel a belonging and at home in my faith. Okay. And in my sexuality, I want you to know that Yob has just been an invaluable, resource for me, helping me to at this point say I absolutely feel at home in my sexuality. I spent years and years and years hating my sexuality, just praying for it to change, as so many people in our, Christian people have tried to pray the gay away. I think that all of us have to go through these 3 steps. Acknowledging your sexuality, and then the process of accepting it, that it's going to stick with you, it's here to stay, and then integrating it into your identity. Yeah. It doesn't have to be your whole identity. It's just a part of your identity to some degree. And that's where I stopped. I acknowledged, I accepted, but I refused to integrate it. I refused to let it be a part of my life for so long. But when I finally did, I came to the realization that God did not just love me in spite of it. He loved me, uniquely in it.
It's like the pigeon forged doily on your counter. It's part of you now.
Oh.
It's not going away.
The doily from the East Tennessee. Yeah, it's with me. And so I had to do the work of letting him be a part of who I am. I realized that it estranges me from some people, Tom. It does to a degree, but it also endears me to a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And my supervisor, my principal this last year where I worked, my colleagues would make fun of me because my principal she loves gay men. She has gay friends who are men. And so they would say, well, you go ask her because you're her favorite. And I would say, listen, I can't help that I'm gay. Don't hate me because I'm gay and the boss likes me better than you. Okay, get over it. Now I'm going to go ask her and I'm going to get the answer that we want. So you find that I feel so at home in it, and I'm so grateful for that. And masculinity, I deal with this all the time. I'm once again 41, and I'm so grateful that I'm in a place where I'm confident in who I am and who I am not, as far as our culture's perception of what is masculine and what is not. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I work with this guy. He is amazing. He's a counselor. He's on one hand, he's a boxer. He's covered in tattoos. He has these big old muscles rippling out of his shirt. He's just this rough guy that you'd be a little bit intimidated by if you met him in a dark alley, right? On the other hand, he is the most gentle, kind, the biggest smile, and you can't help but love him, right? And everybody does. All the women at work are crazy about him. Substitute teachers come in and they're like, oh, who's that one counselor? And I'm like, oh, me? No, they're never talking about me. They're always talking about my colleague because he is just, attractive and magnetic in that way. But I have learned to, honestly, I like to joke about it, but I'm at a place where it really genuinely doesn't bother me. But I really understand that masculinity, there was a time in my life it would have, but I really understand now masculinity looks so different. It shows itself in many different ways. And I'm at peace with it. I had a friend just the other day who was helping me replace a door handle on my old Ford Ranger. And he didn't realize it was a manual transmission. And he said to me, the jerk, he said, "This is a manual? I didn't think you'd drive a manual." And I'm like, what was this, some kind of masculine jab? I'm gay, so I can't use both my feet at the same time? What do you mean? Of course I can drive a manual. But I really just laughed it off and thought, you know what? I'm here. He's helping fix my door handle because I can't figure out how to do it on my own. We all have our strengths. We all have our weaknesses. Masculinity looks so different, despite last book club reference, despite what Wild at Heart says. Not all men are carrying around guns and grenades and obsessed with war in the woods. That Jesus was the epitome, the incarnation, the embodiment, the human form of God. And while he was strong, a carpenter or a stone worker, he was also gentle and approachable with children and kind, and had this deep, loving friendship that he built with men and women, as we referenced. He was not just one display of masculinity, he was all of the things. And every beautiful trait that a man or woman presents to this world are reflections, images of the God who is all things beautiful. You know what I mean? They all are. And so it's not just one way. And it took years for me to get that. But I'm thankful that now I feel in my strengths and weaknesses definitely more at home in my masculinity. Whew, that was a lot.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you said it so well. Was not expecting a Wild at Heart reference. Good for you. Our listeners appreciate that as well. Thank you. Thank you for shouting out Wild at Heart. Thanks, Matt, for sharing. You know, last question I have for you is, because this is a question I am wrestling with in my life, is like, oftentimes I feel like if I make a decision, my worst case scenario, my nightmare of all nightmares is that if I take a step forward, I'm actually taking a step backward. And I always want to like make sure I'm going in the right direction. Like I want forward momentum. And so I'm curious for you, as somebody who lived alone for 15 years, do you feel like you could ever live alone again? Do you feel like would that feel like a step backward for you after living for however many years now, 4 years, 5 years, with other men, with other gay men in particular? I'm just curious, like, I don't know if you have an answer to that right now, but I'm curious what your thought process on that is down the road.
Yeah. So I really trying to think how to say this. I don't think, obviously, I know you don't either, that there's a right or wrong way to go about it.
Yeah.
And I am in process. I think there's a lot. I mean, I'm really, really genuinely trying to figure that out right now at this stage in my life. I think there's a lot that's good for me in sharing with other people. Mm-hmm. But I also see how there's a lot of ways that I feel like I can really love people even better if I have that space of my own. And so I really have no idea, but I don't feel in any way, shape, form that for me to live alone in the future is a step backwards at all, if that makes sense. I just think it's not better, just different for different personalities.
Yeah, it's a good answer, because like I have to tell myself that as I've been living alone for 6 years now, there's this thought of like, gosh, is this what I want the rest of my life to look like, or do I want to share life with people? But I also think back, and I've had challenges, which I'll share later in the series. But I think there's just like, there's no right or wrong per se. Like it might feel that way sometimes, like, oh man, if I used to live with people in a thriving living situation, and then I go to living alone, like I've stepped backwards, I've backtracked, I've gotten off the trail, and I need to get back to the trail. And maybe for some people that is the ideal situation, is to live with people, but that's not to say that God isn't present in the solitariness as well. And I'm excited to talk to those people too, people who live alone and what that experience is like, people who are married and maybe married with kids. And I mean, there's a diverse array of people to talk to. So
for sure,
we're just getting started. Matt, and you got us going. So I hope that this conversation will be the template that other people follow from here on out.
You prompting this really made me kind of step back and zoom out and think about, and especially things about that last question in our future. And I really think there's a lot of guys out there who really feel that way, who are looking at the backyard beside of theirs, right? And seeing the metaphorical greener grass and feeling like their backyard is so pitiful, and be it whatever case. But I really think in all those situations, there can be a lot of beauty and growth in everybody's situation. And so anyway, there's not just one right or wrong way, as we both know. And I'm looking forward to hearing everybody's stories.
Yeah. Conversation, because I've been in this world for so long now. It's like, I hear it all the time. Like, man, what is my life going to look like 20 years from now? What is it going to look like 40 years from now? Who's going to take care of me? Who's going to be living next to me? If I fall and I can't get up, like, who's going to be there to to call 911 or whatever. You know, it's just, I've heard those questions over and over and over again for a predominantly single community. And so, so I don't have answers to those questions. I can't promise myself even that there's going to be somebody in the room if I fall and I can't get up 40 years from now. But I don't know. I think there's beauty in the present. Like I'm a future tripper. I think about the future a lot and where's my life going? Where's this thing going? What's life going to look like down the road? But I think this is a great conversation to have about just being present minded. Like, where are we at today? Where are we at home in these three arenas today? Where can we see the joys? Acknowledge the challenges, but also acknowledge the joys. For some, it's easier to see one or the other. And so I like to give weight to both and just see where people are at in the present day. And my motto for life is like, let's figure this out together. And the beauty of 40 years from now is like, if YOB is still going, like we'll be figuring this out together 40 years from now, and we will know what's going to happen. So it's just no need to live in the future. Let's live in the present. Let's be here now.
Love it.
Thank you, Matt. Love it too. If you guys have any comments on Matt's living situation, Matt's at-homeness, comment on our podcast episode page. Go to yourotherbrothers.com/podcast. Find this ConvoCast for the at-home series and leave us a comment about living with gay men, living alone. I mean, these topics are going to overlap. We're going to talk about people's pasts, people's presents, and yeah, if you have any questions to ask or any stories to lend that apply from anything that Matt shared, please feel free to drop us a comment. We always love hearing from y'all. And stay tuned. Next time, we'll talk to someone else in another living situation, in another status of home, and we will explore all the ins and outs of their faith and sexuality and masculinity. So looking forward to it. Thank you again, Matt. That was very interesting. I'll say it the way that you say it.
Gosh, finally somebody pronounces it correctly.
Very, very interesting conversation. I love it. I always love talking to you. I learned a lot. I learned a lot of new things about you. So that was awesome. I always enjoy that.
Thanks so much.
All right, friends, until we gather at home once again.
When I'm with you, I feel like I'm already home.
I'm going to try to bite my tongue and just be really calm during the next book club. But this book is such garbage. It is just absolute garbage.
I want to, yeah, I appreciate you saying that because you weren't at the last book club. But I told people it's like the convenient thing to do is like, let's just all on this book and let's just all be angry. Like that's such a convenient thing to do. And I also don't want to say that we're not allowed to say bad things about this book because I'm trying to like be fair to John Eldridge or whatever because he's not my friend. I could care less. But I also want to challenge us. Like where are there things? Because I am confident. I haven't started reading it again yet. I've been so busy lately, but I'll probably start reading it this weekend. But yeah, it's just like, okay, yeah, it's probably gonna be triggering in lots of ways, confusing, annoying in lots of ways. But like, where are some things that there's got to be something he's saying in there? I'm confident. I haven't read it in 20 years, but I'm sure there's something in there he's saying that makes sense too, and that's good. Something to take away from. So I also want to make sure we honor that, like we do with any book. Like I think. I don't necessarily need to say that. I feel like our community, we always do a good job of finding constructive things, but then also positive things. So I'm not like worried about it.
They are in there.
But this book has just such a stigma. Yeah, it's just like I just wanted to make sure this isn't just like ha ha ha, Wild at Heart. Let's all hate on this book. But I think we can find some good things in there too.
Yeah, and we spend our time focused on those things and how what those look like. Even if he defines them in a way that's kind of, to me, only focused on 10% of the conversation. He's majoring on a very small percentage, but we can maybe broaden that and maybe talk about the nuance and the opportunity that he's ignoring. Yeah, so I'm sure we will. I'm listening to it small amounts at a time because it just makes me crazy. I can't listen to it for long.
Had you read this?
No.
Had you read this before? You never did? Wow. How did you escape evangelical male America in the 90s without reading this book? That is my question.
Yeah, I don't know. I escaped a lot. I don't know. I was just clueless. Like, Rise and
this
Fall?
This is the book.
The Mars Hill stuff with what's his name? I totally missed that when it was happening. Isn't that crazy?
Interesting.
What was I What was I doing?
Interesting. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I was sort of aware. It's not like I was like super keyed into it. Like I was vaguely aware of what was going on with him, but that podcast, yeah, was definitely illuminated a lot. We'll have a good old discussion about masculinity. We don't get to talk just straight up about masculinity most of the time, but that'll be a good conversation in a couple weeks.
I'm looking forward to it. And I'm going to play.
Yeah.
I'm going to play nice. It'll be good.
You can bite your tongue a little bit, but not the whole time. You can release your tongue here and there. That's fine.